Lama Karmapa, Kingur Kungi Chuni, Sishi Bangi, Nandrama, Chile Kungi Chibu, Chugyon Berji Jamdela, Nandu Teji, Gubidu, Tremi, Tuji, Kyora, Tato Sende, Tam Jigi, no Chisu Dora, Jingi Lavdus, Chulam Dora, Jingi Lavdus, Lam Truba Sora, Jingi Lavdus, Truba Yeshi, Chawra, Jingi Lavdus. Namgyal Tadanya Simjet Tamje. Kowa Dungalgi Katule Talde, Namgyal Anamebe, Kohom Tampala, Govercha, Tei Chidu, Ambechula, Tesum Kumsungi, Gone, Chubur Gyu, Nembe, Kumong Chanchu Chodu, Tuge Basal Tabne, Tambeshu Sembreshu.
Please listen to the teachings of the genuine Dharma by first rousing bodhicitta, the mind of awakening, the pure motivation that resolves by means of listening, contemplating, and meditating on the Dharma. I shall free all beings, infinite as space, from this ocean of suffering that is samsara, and establish them in the unsurpassed state of omniscience.
O Chugil double Haji Sung double Chushi.
Of all the possible topics of the Dharma to which we could be attending, our topic is the 4 Dharmas of the King of Dharma, the Lord Gampopa, the monk physician.
Oh, start double Chushi le Tambo any Lochus door. Shivakabre. There's a Kashinala Lochus draw, Kashinala Chus draw. Any then that tower.
Of these 4 Dharmas of Gampopa, we are in the midst of the explanation of the first, the mind turning to Dharma, which some texts lay out as the Dharma serving as Dharma, which is similar in meaning.
Any a choose draw, low choose draw. Telada. Lo choose draw, Sinatini, Chimato Singanyang any Jinde Meba Jail Deva Meba Chasona, think as low choose draw, say the Che Maim Shawa Gangyan Jindu Meba. Che Kuna Jayla Tabayaba. Tedo Samlo. Any Goatam Maimba, Siktam Maimba, Goatam Maimba, Nuatamba. Nuan Diang, Nua de Land, Rimbaniera, Solva the Jeba, Solva Meba. Did any somebody Nua Tolo Meba Tena? Then it give Chungi Lam, give Chung the Tumo Lam, Gula give said. Gula get said it, go at that. Take up the Lochus dollar.
Whether we speak of the mind turning to Dharma or the Dharma serving as Dharma, what is meant is the authentic wish to ensure the accomplishment of Dharma as Dharma, one that is not contrived. It is a genuine longing that is authentic, not fabricated. It is not merely at the level of words. It is not merely at the level of intellectual understanding, but an actual, deep-rooted, visceral experience, one that arises organically and authentically without effort. This mindset that aligns with the motivation of the mindset of the individuals of initial spiritual maturity is said to be the measure of the path of initial spiritual maturity that seeks to accomplish only Dharma and no other priorities. You can also say this is the path shared in common with the initial degree of spiritual maturity arising in the mind stream. This is what it means to say that the mind turns to Dharma, that mindset is active in the mind stream.
Any Lodi, Lochis, any Tobadi, Gulagiwa, condition grace, Samna, there are Sulni, Chick Ketogi. Ketogi is in a Sidila, the name Pedal Jimagoba, Rangsingi. Kayung, Diggers and Kawangama Kombaje Taro. Kawangama comes or Gulakets are in the Sidila, Chesam Gumsum Majenayam, Rangsingi, Shema the Chindu Yung Sigra, Kawat, any Kibutama Mauchumro, Manda. These are Garan Ketugi Jumara, Sidila Chesam Chebala Magoba, Kiwara. Chetan Ketogi is Yungware. He Yungwe did any Chesum Gusumgi Chambangundu, Kawangama Cesara. The Bakchaki said the Chesum Gusum Shine, Majinayang, any Rangsingi, the Kin Temple Latine, Tene, Lochus do the Yungora. Tigre Ketogi Jumara. That the Ketogi Mena, Tene. Sedile Shine Changbajene, Kegura, Tedavo Lochus do Tobadi, any Changbajene, Kegura.
If you ask, how does this mindset that turns to the Dharma arise in the mind stream? How does it become active in the mind stream? You can say that there are two ways that this goes about. There's one that we could call spontaneous, arising on its own force by the force of being born. This means that in this life, without even putting in the effort on listening and contemplating, meditating on the teachings, the mind turns to Dharma naturally, spontaneously. This is the sign of the force of karmic seeds of previous lives maturing. This is a natural, spontaneous occurrence that happens by the strength of the strong habitual imprints for mind turning to Dharma in previous lives. There isn't a need to depend on listening and contemplating to develop the precise knowledge in the mind stream. Due to the force of the habitual imprints in the mind naturally turns to Dharma. That is the first way. Otherwise, it's vital to engage in listening, contemplating, and meditating in order to train in the methods that turn the mind to Dharma.
Onlas. Tinda chetila any ketogi loches doa de mena. Then chetila shine any kinshila tene loches doa lam jango gure. Namne jego gure. Di jebe tul di kandere la kinshila tene jego gure. Kinshi di treba samba gombara. To di gombara. Gombala any gomje la sambe ngishi gugura. Any samba jayala dini damala treba jego gura. Meni dosu dini chesum gomsum mus. Di kinsum ra. Kin shiba di garlan chesum gomsum jesa di su gore sana. Any damga yoshingi gyeshini ji gugura. Dini sangene ma gyuba mashaba. Any damagi gyunyebe gyeshini ji la tene chesum jego gure. Dini gyeshini dimbadi kin shibar. Dini gyeshini ten tebache sambache komgya. Tele kinshila tene dine nyamni je gure.
那我们没有过去的这
장도 기계와. 지도 kinshila tene 장와제나. tene 단다시바나 신기 로추스도에 똑바디 gyulage gire. 장도 기계와래.
If in this life our mind has not spontaneously turned to Dharma on the strength of merely being born, then one is going to do. In that case, then what is necessary is to train in the path, the methods that turn the mind to Dharma. What are those methods? You can say that it depends on 4 conditions. The training and turning the mind to Dharma depends on the first 3, listening, contemplating, and meditating on the teachings of the Dharma that turn the mind to Dharma. Of these 3, listening, contemplating, and meditating is the principal one. But what do you need for meditating? You need the clear knowing that comes about through contemplating. And what do you need for contemplating? You need the spiritual instructions, the teachings that we gain from listening. These are the 3 conditions of listening, contemplating, and meditating, each reliant on the previous one. Then what is the 4th condition? The 4th condition is the site, the locus of those instructions, the spiritual master or teacher with an unbroken lineage from the Buddha Shakyamuni who transmits the instructions of the Dharma. Based on the spiritual instructions of the Dharma teacher, we're able to engage in listening, contemplating, and meditating. So the 4th condition is the spiritual master who imparts the instructions, the Dharma teachings to which we listen. Based on that listening, we contemplate. Based on the contemplation, we develop clear knowing that we take to meditation. These are the 4 conditions that we use in order to turn the mind to Dharma and activate that mindset in our mind stream. And you can say that this occurs on the strength of training or learning in this method. There were many questions for today. The 5 questions I have here. The first is, what is the process of listening, contemplating, and meditating exactly? So joining that question with this explanation will save us some time.
gomja garin basine ki garijine gomgo gure di masina gomela deba ki mara gomja garin basine tel deba mena gom bedu jig mara di gomja garin basie thani ki garijine gomgo gure gomna phe gare gare magomna nimi gare gare di masina gom gobi ginji shig mara goba shig mara di masina gomela deba ki mara to ki mara to magina bedu jig mara teni indikasu in gomja garin bashe gure di garijine gomgogi bashe gure in di gomja garin bashe gomgobi gobashine da gomela dobakena gomsul ganes gomgure di masina yang bedul jigre bedul di nele memba dugumara indikasu gomja garare she gure di garijine gomgure di shen gure tel tene gomja dela gomege toa kegre toa kedi gosu dine bedul jigre hine yang bedul jidang masena yang bedul di thola dogura odi ine gosu gandesu gomgo gure sumbade di shegora di jungna tini gomnyamnen jigre susin jigre tordina dine nandulo gom gyule kegre mares diwadina tene leng gare yore komela deba yeba gombe sul sheba ni thango gura sul masena deba yena ya pheng mare sul shene deba mena gomgu mare tin de ni gomela deba yeba gom sul sheba ni jona tini gombala betul susin de jegre gombala betul susin de jena gom gila keba migeba miseba tene indikasu tene da ani gomja garimba share dela gomja garimba dang garijine gomguyeba ani gomsul gande seba tisum di shela shirab rimbani kegugura shirab rimbani de garlamna tebe shirab dang sambe shirab
When we consider this practice of listening, contemplating, and meditating, there are several things we need to have in place in order to accomplish it effectively. First, we need to know what it is we meditate on, the focus or object of meditation, the topic. Otherwise, how would we meditate if we didn't know what topic we're meditating on? We need to understand the topic. Then, in addition to understanding the topic or object of meditation, we need to understand why we're doing this meditation. Why do we cultivate familiarity with a particular topic? This is what generates the wish, the longing, the inclination to engage in that meditation. If we're not inclined to do the meditation, why would we do it? We have to actually want to meditate on something before we meditate on it. How do we do that? we generate that wish or inclination to meditate by understanding what is valuable about it. What are the advantages of doing it? What are the disadvantages of not doing it? Without that, if there is no wish to actually engage in the meditation, there is no enthusiasm for the practice, which is what actually drives us to do the meditation. If we don't have this wish, this enthusiasm, there's no reason why we would put in the effort to undertake the meditation. If we understand the meditation topic, we've identified that, and why we would want to undertake the meditation because of the advantages of doing so and disadvantages of not doing so. We have the wish to do so and the enthusiasm that drives us to do the meditation. Then the third piece is we have to know how to do the meditation. Even if we know what the topic is and we have the wish and enthusiasm, we also need to know the method for undertaking the meditation. Otherwise, even if we have the wish and are ready to put in the efforts to do so, without knowing how to do it, we would just let that effort go to waste. The meditation wouldn't be effective. When we have all three, the understanding of the topic, the reason why to meditate that leads to effort, and the knowledge of the procedure of the meditation, not only do we do the meditation, but we do it accurately, effectively. Simply put, if we ask, how do we generate the experiential understanding through meditation with any given topic, the topic is we have to have the wish to engage in the meditation and an understanding of how to do it. If we don't have the wish, it doesn't matter whether we understand or not, we won't do it. If we have the wish, but we don't know how to do the meditation, then our efforts go to waste because they're not effective. If we have both the wish to do the meditation and an understanding of how to go about it, then our meditation is effective and occurs as intended. With these two in place, when we actually do the meditation, it's impossible for meditative understanding not to activate in the mind stream. With the wish and understanding of how to meditate, we actually do the meditation. It occurs effectively, and these are the things that we need to know for any topic whatsoever. What the topic is, why it's important to meditate on it, and how to do that. When we have these three, then we're able to give rise to the two levels of prajna, precise knowledge, that precede meditation, namely the precise knowledge coming from listening and the precise knowledge coming from contemplation.
Hola. Today, because of that, Gombe Shirabdi, Tube, Sambe Shirab Latine Gigure. And Sambe Shirabdi, Tube Shirab Latine Gigura, Shirab Sundi, Gundere. The Imbi Gimzi, the Gombe Shirabgi, Gomja de Garre Lana, Gombe Shirabgi, Gomja de Garre Lana, Tube Shirabgi, Nishiki with Nendra. Perna Midawala Chashana. Midawa Gombe Shirabdi any Midaway de la Samlotane, Samjungi Nishera. Any Nishi Nibi Dungera. The Nishiki Yugi Dungera. The Gombe Shirabdi Gomjara. Nishiki Yugi Dundela, any Gombe Shirabdi, any Gomba Jene, any Gomjungi Shirabgira. Tell a new one to go to Gomjung Sharabra. Yuma Matumba to Gombarema, Gomjung Yamara. Any Tubi Shirabgi Yul de la Gomba Jene, any Gomjung Gira, Gomjung Sharab Gira. Tini some Besharol Tini, one Besharab Kigres, Kesudiro. In Nashin Tini, some Besharab the Goni Kiglam, two Besharol Tini Kigora. Some Besharab Tanadini, Lunda Ribola Tini, Chevatangora. Chevatang Sangi Shidigazana, two Besharab Yuldra. Two Besharab Gigarathanadini, Sungrab Chigdan Dun, Tuni Zishara. Di Sambi Yulra, Samba Jag Yulra. Di Indigenous, Tubi Shirabgi Tobi Yul de la, Sambi Shirabgi Samba, any Samba Jena, Samba Jenasana, Luna River Chebatang, any Chebatang, Samba Jera, Chebatang Nishiki goes to some young Sharabgira. The Tubi Shirabdene. Some young Sharab Giga to be Sharab Dene, Sambaje, Sambal Dene, some young Sharab Giga.
These three prajnas, or precise knowing, the precise knowledge coming from meditation, from contemplation, and from listening, are related to each other as cause and effect. The precise knowledge coming from meditation depends on having developed the precise knowledge coming from contemplation, and that develops on the basis of the precise knowledge coming from listening. What is the reason for that? When we look at the precise knowledge that comes from meditation, the meditation object is the clear knowing, the certainty, developed in contemplation. Listening and contemplating yield certainty, clear knowing, which is the object of meditation. So, for example, if our meditation topic is impermanence, to develop the precise knowledge that comes from meditation, the meditative prajna, the object of that is the clear knowing or certainty that arises in contemplation. It's based on ascertaining the meaning of the object of our contemplation, that we have this clear knowing that is the object for our meditation. And when we engage in that meditation with that object, we develop the precise knowledge coming from meditation. This meditative prajna is an experiential understanding. It's an experience that is called the precise knowledge arising from meditation. But where does that come from? The precise knowledge coming from meditation is tied all the way back to the object of the precise knowledge that came from listening at first. That object of listening, from which we develop the listening prajna, is the object of our contemplation. When we develop the contemplative prajna, we take that to meditation and develop the meditative prajna. So each depends on the previous one. Developing the precise knowledge arising from contemplation depends on having developed the precise knowledge coming from listening. So when we say contemplation, what are we talking about? What we're talking about is we take the object consisting of the precise knowledge arising from listening, and we examine that through scriptures and reasoning, logic. By examining the words and the meaning that we understood at the level of listening, using scriptures and logical reasoning, we are engaging in contemplation. When we generate the clear knowing or certainty in contemplation, that's what goes on into meditative practice. So the object that we realize at the level of listening, the precise knowledge of listening, is what we use to contemplate, examining that object of listening with reasonings and scriptures until we give rise to the precise knowledge coming from contemplation, a sense of intellectual certainty, a clear knowing that then becomes the object of meditation. This is how it is that the precise knowledge coming from listening fuels contemplation, which then generates the precise knowledge coming from contemplation, and that fuels meditation and the meditative prajna.
또 최선 검수 써야 되더니 실업 넘버 숨 아니 먼저 최년년 제기다 좀 봐. 디레 로비 인기 술네 최당 섬dembe 곰발라니 랍드 조르 송와 다 나랑도 디나라더니 책바 기부숨가게 되니 람기 냠닝기 좀 바차강 송여래다. 시 수림란에 저바체 선바체 범격 기부충 등 전복이 냠는 상화 고름 아니 람기 냠닝기다 고름들 딘잔들은 어서 남바상계에 캐치 거르레스 저디나 시 수림란내네 최선문도 성대 곰반 잉부르지바 남바상계별로 그랬어. 잉부디 곰바래 디 규디 퇴섬래 퇴섬 디 숨가기 시디 수림래 디 수림다 시제 최선문도 성 곰반 잉부르지에서 디 남바상계별로 그랬어.
Developing the precise knowledge coming from listening, from contemplating, and from meditating is the sequence of all Dharma practice. It's how we take Dharma into our experience or integrate Dharma. The master of Vasubandhu laid this out very neatly, saying, on a foundation of ethical discipline, engage thoroughly in listening, contemplating, and meditating. What this means is that whether we're talking about any of the degrees of spiritual maturity, the sequence of practice of the path, how we take the path into our experience, is precisely as Vasubandhu says. First, we lay the foundation of ethical discipline. Then we engage in listening, which fuels the contemplating, and that fuels the meditating. Each of these developing their particular precise knowledge. This is the exact same sequence for practicing the path for all 3 degrees of spiritual maturity. In fact, if you ask, what is the distinctive feature of the Buddhist tradition, of the approach of Buddhist practitioners, this is it. Laying the foundation of ethical discipline, and based on that, engaging and listening and contemplating to get to the very essence of the Dharma through meditation. This is the tradition of the Buddha Dharma. And the way we get to that very essence of meditation, the way we integrate it, is by developing the cause for that, precise knowledge coming from listening and contemplating. What is the cause of that? It is the ethical discipline that serves as the basis. This is the tradition of the Buddha Dharma.
Oh, that's the thing of the Tusum Gumsum said, of the Pete on the Shena. Manans numerate gimmity. Ginyum Belashana. Telling of the 2-way shrub said the Kandere Lamna. Manzula cookie, then shopping the list take it off. Mansugi any kitchen head cookie, Manzula shopping the list. So, Nedri shopping the Jagure, any market telayore, market la doeg lamga dire, Tene, ito list chik ang tilabal rane, tene, nga to dila ta, tene, chala gare nyogu yoba, nyosa gawa yoba, te rusa ki lamga kande yoba, di thangma, tene, nga to samlatang ra. Samlatang ne shedi kasu, tene, di gare, tepe shirab ra gare. Tene, dina la, tempa nashi, tene, lamga dina la do, shopping market dala le, chala relation to ta, tene, nyobsha nyogu ra. Tene, nyobsha nyone, store na le, any storekeeper late store nala da store jigra ti garre la na sambe sharabre
If we want to look at an everyday experience that illustrates this process of listening, contemplating, and meditating, something that we are familiar with in our everyday human lives, we can think of the process of developing a meal. So let's say we have a head cook that's arranging a meal. The process of listening is similar to that head cook laying out a shopping list of all the ingredients they need and telling us, well, there's this particular market where you buy this and that, and this is the route that you take to get there. This is the road you get there. These are the directions. These are the particular things I need. This is where you buy these or those things, how you arrive there, and so forth. As we take that all in and we understand all of those details, that's similar to the precise knowledge arising from listening. We've understood these details at this level. Then when we actually take the road, go to the market, see all the different things, once we arrive there, buy the things we need, get the things stored and ready to go, that's like the precise knowledge coming from contemplating. We've actually gone there and accomplished the instructions from the first level.
Hola. Gombe jibadan gombe shirab ni yara. Gombe jibadi garlana chegum dang chugum ni yara. Maranto da kibu chungi lamdang kibu dingi lamdesula. Neni pena midabadan lende gombe deso changwa chegum zora. Dini chebe gomdang chobe gom ni jegora mare. Dini chegum dang chugum ni jibadi 그것도 냠냠샤려 말아. 제바던 공부 최성기 율들라 제바던 공부 지고 알아. 티 간데래라나더니 나도 키친 나도는 쿡 지그라. 자기 쇼핑 제셔기도 투켜드니 키친 나는 쿡 지그라. 디 제금들 디디로 그래. 근데 칼라 냠스 용어야 말해. 이네 칼라 쿡 지고 알아. Any cook Jethan, then dining hall, the table Galashagra, the Jogom Jigora. The name of the Kadi check color the rogan check on a Saturday, the Ronjong Rasine. He goes to the name Gom Jebel, the name Gomjung in Yonaki Orada. Did the Chibur Gombajibadan, Gombe Sherab Kibas, Rimbani Dogora.
Then when we get to the level of meditation, there are two phases here. There's actually engaging in the meditation, and then there's the prajna, the precise knowledge that arises from the meditation. When we look at how we actually engage in that meditation, this involves resting and analytical meditation. So we actually examine as a meditative process, and we rest as a meditative process. Both of these are necessary. So for example, if we look at the first and second degrees of spiritual maturity, principally the experiential analysis that's involved at these levels is the meditation on impermanence and karmic causality. So there is the examining aspect of the meditation and the resting aspect of the meditation for each of these. That's how the experiential understanding arises. But how do we do that? It's like the example of the cook who's preparing a meal. We engage in the examining meditation and the resting meditation based on the objects of listening and contemplating. So in our example, this is like having already heard all of the instructions and then actually gone to the shop and purchased the meals. Now, when we're at the level of meditating, it's like we're cooking when we use the analytical meditation. We examine in the meditative state, and that's like actually cooking the meal and preparing it and having it ready to go. But even when we cook the meal, we haven't actually tasted it. Now the cook sends it to the dining hall, serves it, and when we sit down and actually eat the food, we're able to taste it. This is like the resting meditation. It's the point where we're actually experiencing the flavor of the meal. It's the development of the experience that comes from the meditation. So it's the same kind of process as in our example. First, we actually engage in the activity of meditation, and out of that, we have the second level, which is the occurrence of the prajna arising from meditation.
Hola. Ini jegum dang samba jeba dang jegum jeba niga dini jeba niga la yoro sosro wa ini samba jeba di khachide gi jebaro gumbi ini jegum gi jeba di khanangde gi jebaro khachide gi jeba jene ngishi gi tawe dendi any rangi simgula charne khanang ko ne dine any cheba da gomba cheba jene any ngishi ke dela teji do sha dido jene dine jogum pelma jene cheguro din da dine nikala sambala cheba yore any jogum la yang cheba yore kebar gare yolam chigdi khachi de gi chebare shopping jawa diro shopping the kitchen na jegi maro the ko dene ani jegum gi jeba de garasa khanang de gi jebaro chosam gi jene ngi shi ke tharwadi simla charne dene jeba jegiro simju de charne jeba jegiro den da dene khanang de gi jebare.
When we look at this analytical phase of the meditation, the examining, there is examining at that level. There's also examination at the level of contemplation. Both contemplation and the analytical phase of meditation involve examination in a way that is intricately detailed, very specifically detailed. So what's the difference? The difference is that in contemplation, the examination is outer directed, whereas in the analytical phase of meditation, it is inner directed. So what does that mean? That means that at the level of analytical meditation, we're actually turning inward to our own mind stream and applying the analysis to that until we develop this clear knowing, this certainty. When that experience of clear knowing and certainty arises, we rest in that. So we have this constant alternation between the analytical phase of the meditation and the resting phase of the meditation. The analysis is present in both the meditation and the contemplation. The difference again is that in the phase of contemplating, that examining, that analysis is outer directed, like when we're in the market shopping for the things and we're looking for the items. Whereas in the analytical phase of the meditation, that analysis, that examination is inner directed. We take the understanding from listening and contemplate it and turn inward to our own mind stream and examine that through this understanding, the precise knowledge coming from listening and contemplating. That's the difference with this style of analysis, this examination that is inward turned.
이게 다 최선 검숨 세대더니 나도 저 당보디 길렌 양념도 중화라가 저 당보도 저 당보디 길렌 렌야 디나가 상대
So I hope that this description of listening, contemplating, and meditating also answers with completion the first question that I was given from the previous sessions. I received 5 questions from previous sessions, and this is the response to the first.
All that the ending of the cups baba that any kibuchungi kibuchungu that timbe lam lo chus to us at the kilakegi tabdilla young Tresum Gumsum. Kugure. Did that any digula give any Yamningi tab de ladini, Tabaje, any some people in Nishiki, any Nishiki with Nende ladini, Jagum the Jogumje, any compassion of Keku. Chibar. Unijina. Tene ngato kibuchungu yang kibuchungu da tumo lamjela tebada samba kombache sona digi ki mine ini kibu dingi lamla tebache be nurung gyugira dini kibuchungu lamji kibu dingi lamgi minjera dini kibuchungu lamla tebada samba kombache dikasu ni kibu dingi lamla Tebadon Sambadon Gombajegi, Neduruma Chagra. The Dada Kibuchungi Lam de la Gomjungi Sherab Kidikosu, Jiming in Yatena, Dikosu Dini Kibu Tingi Lamla Tesum Jena, Tebajena, the Tebi Sherab, the Tumo Maiva Yungura. Telatene Samjungi Sherabian, Sambadan Samjungi Sherabian, Tumama Yungre, Tumama Batana, Le Lavo. Any to Le Lavo, Kilakia Le Lavo Yungre.
If we apply the meaning of this to the context we are arrived at now, that of the path of the initial degree of spiritual maturity, or you could say the path shared in common with the initial degree of spiritual maturity, which is turning the mind to Dharma, the way to actually give rise to this in the mind stream is also this process of the triad of listening, contemplating, and meditating. It is through listening to the teachings at this initial degree that we have the precise knowledge, which we take to contemplation. In that contemplation, we develop clear knowing, certainty, and that's how we actually undertake the meditation that gives rise to the meditative prajna, that experiential understanding. When we've actually done this, then this listening, contemplating, and meditating, that is the path shared in common with the initial degree of spiritual maturity, serves to ripen the individual, make them a fit vessel for the path of the intermediate degree of spiritual maturity. So you could say that the initial degree of spiritual maturity serves as the path that ripens the mind for the second degree of spiritual maturity, the intermediate degree. And it is by means of undertaking listening, contemplating, and meditating at the level of the initial degree of spiritual maturity that one becomes a fit vessel, ripe for the path of the intermediate degree of spiritual maturity. When it's done in this way, and the experiential understanding consisting of the precise knowledge coming from meditation at the initial degree of spiritual maturity arises, then we're able to use that for the listening in the intermediate degree of spiritual maturity. That gives rise to the prajna arising from listening at that intermediate degree. And it does so in a way that's extraordinary. It's a very particular and special way. That then fuels contemplating, and it gives rise to extraordinary precise knowledge arising from contemplating, and in turn, extraordinary precise knowledge arising from meditating. What does extraordinary mean here? It means it happens very readily, very easily. And it not only is it easy to undertake the steps of listening, contemplating, and meditating, but it's also easy for the corresponding precise knowledge to become active in the mind stream.
Hola, 최섬 곰숨 세대들이 더불어미치기 최섬 곰숨 투머를 집안이 최근에 만나와 예송래 디니 퇴바제 선바제 곰겹들이 기부 중을 남다 퇴바제 선바제 곰겹들이 사람마라 기부 중을 남다 선바제 곰바제 곰겹이 줄기들이 아니 기부 딩기 남다 퇴바제기들이 줄바브라 딜라드네 퇴바제 선바제 곰겹들이 기부 중을 남다 퇴바 선바 곰바제기 딜바브라 어찌더버지네들이 Lama Homa Tesum Gosu Goma Lamla Tesum Gosum Jagi Gochidora Mado any Lambo Teba de Thama Sat Tenisini Sambaje, any somebody Thama Sat Dini Gomja in Sarre Yamara in the Lamo Girimba Homa Tesum Gomsum Sanadini Gomela Tesum Gonsum Vichugura. Ini rimba homa la tesum gonsum sadro de ini goma la tesum gonsum je gugap chedo ro penna garanzo lamga na hungchi na la de lamba la torch ken do ro torch lamba la torch ken do de go an ngodo gomba re podu go ngodo torch di pero chena no retail duguyena chena na hunala to ngazo toast di ngaran to dambo step go to sardene retail badu any salvo sogingi toast yomara tene kugumara tene yomare kugumara dende dido badre ngazo dambo sangyo go hombo cheba 상마 sar tene sine gomgedi dido kugumara dido yongtugumara Tindida Karagurilla Nato the torch the Torski Hedi Tomagang thế là đúng chứ đúng thế là nhưng mà thế này mỹ chỉ rồi cô thế này retail là thế này cũng đã xem là đồ của rồi là thì ngân hàng mang theo cái xong rồi tăng cái tăng bộ thế này chưa xong thì chắc chắn sar thế này xong bây giờ thế này xin được cũng kẹp thì được xong rồi thì chưa xong cũng xong cái bắt thì được mà rồi làm ông là chưa xong cũng chắc chắn thế này thế này cũng là chưa xong cũng thế 이 고마를 쳐선 것은 제더니 최바다 선박 공부선디 얼마 전에 도고라 얼마 전에 도고라 이 최바 상마 대절 사 디절더니 신내 선박에 최바 상마 살살도 거다 드니 응어도 손남네 상계 사이버 상마 퇴네더니 찌게 쳐좀 매버서 드니 선박에 드니 검게들이 손으로 담고 알아가서 어디로 그거 말에 이러고 영토고 말해서 디인다더니 람림바 오마라 쳐선 것은 타네 고마라 쳐선 것은 고체도 그래 쳐선 것은 제네 고마라 쳐선 것은 제고 그래서 pero 샤나드는 나도 젠라나 훈나라 토스케네 도나 드니 토스티 나도 데스티네이션 버도 차당라더니 설투경이 토스 요마라데 이네 드니 고구마라 나도 토스 라발 케네 드니 곰바직 보나 토스디 곰바직 문라 도라 디디 나도 데스티네이션 레르기 가서 토스디 나도 녀데 데스티네이션 달라 여러 왜 디디 버들레그라 디디니 나도 곰바레 야포르도 가서 토스디 곰바레 야도그라 나도 야도데 토스디 말하 되고 말아 디디 가서 드니 베디랑 찍어래 최선 공순데 얘들 찍어래 손에 라마 엄마들 최선 공순 살디 가서 람 엄마기 최선 공순 탈친디 가서 드니 람 고마라 시럽 펠도그라 람 고마디 통도그라 말이 통도 롱아 차그라
네.
이 람 고마라 쳐버지 선버지 드니 시럽 야야도그라 디다 그래서
The Lord Gampopa, when explaining listening, contemplating, and meditating, says that the unmistaken way of integrating the Dharma is precisely this: to first listen and develop the precise knowledge from listening, contemplate and develop the precise knowledge coming from contemplating, and meditate and develop the precise knowledge coming from meditating. But it's talking about a very specific way of doing it. Often we might think we have to listen and contemplate to everything before we ever get to the meditating. But what this is saying is that first we engage in the listening, contemplating, and meditating at the level shared in common with the initial degree of spiritual maturity. Once we've brought that to completion, we've invoked the threefold precise knowledge of listening, contemplating, and meditating in our mind stream. That means that the time has come to embark on listening, contemplating, and meditating at the intermediate degree of spiritual maturity. And then we do that, listen, contemplate, and meditate, developing the corresponding precise knowledge for each. That means that now the time has come to embark on the optimal degree of spiritual maturity with its corresponding listening, contemplating, and meditating, and threefold precise knowledge that go with each of those. So what's happening here is that each of the previous paths is opening the door for the next approach. Each of these degrees, once brought to its completion, opens the door to the next, and then that one to the next. It's not that we have to do all the listening, contemplating, finish that, and then actually engage in the meditation, shamatha, and so forth. That's not how it works. The way it works is through a process of each previous stage serving as the method for opening the door to the next. So we're actually engaging in listening, contemplating, and meditating at each stage, and that opens the door to the next level of spiritual maturity. That's what allows us to actually engage in the next piece of listening, contemplating, and meditating. In this way, we're going step by step in a progressive process. It's kind of like if we had to go to a far destination, maybe a high mountain peak in the dark, and we have a torch to light our way. That torch lights our way step by step. We don't need the torch to light the entire path all the way up to the mountain top. It's not necessary, and it's not even possible. We won't find a torch that's powerful enough to light the entire way from where we stand all the way up to the mountaintop. And not only is that not something that we can have, we also don't need it. What we need is something that lights our way as we go. And that's how this process works. It's not that we have to listen to everything, then contemplate everything, then develop shamatha and meditate on everything once all that is done. If that were the case, we would never arrive. It's not something that we can do, and it's not something we need to do. Just as in the case of the torch that lights our way, what we need is just enough to get to the next level. When someone is going to this high mountaintop in the dark, all they need is enough light for the next piece. And just so, we don't need to do all the listening, all the contemplating before we actually engage in the meditation. How it works is we do the listening, contemplating, and meditating at the initial degree of spiritual maturity. That's what activates the mind to engage in the intermediate degree of spiritual maturity, where we engage in that corresponding listening, contemplating, and meditating, invoking the precise knowledge at that level. And that opens the door to the third degree of spiritual maturity, where again, we engage in the corresponding listening, contemplating, and meditating, and invoke the precise knowledge corresponding to that. So there's these phases of listening, contemplating, and meditating that alternate through each of these different levels. In that way, we're able to step by step get to the destination. We don't have to do all the listening before we do all the contemplating, and do all the contemplating before all the meditating. Not only is that not necessary, it's not really likely to work out that way. The way it works is we do the listening, contemplating, and meditating at the initial degree. That opens the door to the same process at the corresponding amount of listening, contemplating, and meditating of the intermediate degree. And that leads to the corresponding listening, contemplating, and meditating of the optimal degree. In that way, it's like going to the mountaintop in the dark of night with our torch. We don't need the torch to light the entire way from where we stand all the way up to the peak, and we won't even be able to find one that's strong enough to do that. All we need is to light our next step. The light of the torch is enough to get to the next step, one step ahead of us. Then when we take that step, the torch is one step ahead of us again and lights our way for that much farther down. Just like this example, the phases of listening, contemplating, and meditating with their corresponding prajna take us step by step, each previous aspect of the path leading us to the next. Once it is completed, brought to its perfection, the precise knowledge that we develop from that then opens the door to the next stage of the path. And as that precise knowledge grows, it makes us ripe for the listening, contemplating, and meditating at the next stage. That's what allows us to again invoke the precise knowledge corresponding to that stage, and so forth.
Chugi Java Mado, any Java Shen La Lomi Juba. Chu Kuna do go to some of the Kegres. Itagi Lochus draw said, any Chu Kuna do go to some of the Lochus draw is Lara. A Chu Kuna do go to some of the Kreski Gugure. Lana. The Gala, Chima Dunir Sambaki Gura. Chimango Govanto Gudu, some of the Kigura. Chimango Govanto Gudu, some of the Kedla, and in the Dawai Basambadan, Nansung in Samba, Leg in December. Disum la Mignet, Omna Igor.
Engaging and listening, contemplating and meditating at the level that we are explaining in the four dharmas of Gampopa, namely the mind turning the dharma, is, as I explained before, principally for the mind to turn to dharma, we need to understand the impermanence of this life, the transitoriness of this life. In addition, we also need to understand karmic cause and effect and the disadvantages of negative rebirths. These are the three main points that serve as the means, the methods that turn the mind to Dharma. By listening, contemplating, and meditating on these, we're able to develop this mindset that turns to Dharma. So the way it works is that the principal objects of our meditation, the principal focus of our meditative practice is first the transitoriness or impermanence of this life, then the disadvantages of the negative rebirths, because the negative rebirths are a possibility, and that depends on understanding karmic cause and effect. These are the three frameworks, the three focuses for our meditative practice at the initial level, the initial degree of spiritual maturity. It's what overturns our fixation, obsession, and preoccupation with the things of this life. It also gives rise to the mindset that urgently seeks to accomplish the benefit of future lives. When we have that mindset develop, then there's this sense of, I will ensure that I accomplish Dharma alone, that everything I do goes to the Dharma. That's how we're able to engage in the mind turning to Dharma, not only in Dharma activities, which obviously are already directed to Dharma in their content, but even in non-Dharmic activities as well. This is the mindset that everything I do shall serve as Dharma. And how do we give rise to that? We do that by developing the mindset that seeks the benefit of future lives, that seeks to accomplish positive rebirths in future lives. And the way to develop that mindset is by listening, contemplating, and meditating on the teachings that allow us to develop the meditative understanding of the impermanence of this life, the deficiencies of the negative rebirths, and karmic cause and effect.
All that. Jadi gom di dendera. Mantu, tapi midagwe gom di dene ne le mimba. Midagwe lo nalma yang dawaji kiye gona. Digi yalala. Ngensungi nimi gomba dan lende gomba ni chango gore. Gomba sum di tsona, dini shine dini midagwa shine dini ando chima denir gi samba de kegre. Pero chashana ando khangbaji zogona kodang gihungdang dini ceiling dang floor dang di thangwa changora mare. Dini di sudi go tango gozo gihungso dini kodang gihung ni jar dini thog yap dini khangba chagira. Dini di part suzu zogora. Dini di thangwa su jardi go dini khangba chagira. Khangba chik. Dini ashi de kibu chungu nyamnen dila dini nyamnen ki chashi mangbo ji. Dini tango gyula gya chi di thangwa su cho na dini nyamnen zo di kegira. Dini nangshi. Chima dinir lo di kia la kare gugure la na tangbo gom sum de sango. Nensung nimi gombe gombadang, midaba gombe gombadang, eni lende gombe gombayara. Di migba soso sumro. Migba soso sum de la migne tangbo gomre regyap. Tene di sum chikdu tsona, tela tene dini, chima dinyo lo chima membati kegira. Tindi, ini, gomsumdi chima dinyo lo kiyagi gyure. Dribuchi kiyala gyu mangu tangu gura mare. Gyure rigi kiyagi mara. Kiyari rigi kiyagi mara. Dini kasi midaba gombe gombadang, ngensungi nimi gombadang midaba ini lende gomba sumla dene chima dinyo lo chima mayimba kigiri. Kigugar.
These three meditative topics are necessary to be complete in order to develop this mindset that completes the initial degree of spiritual maturity in an authentic way, in a natural way. We need the meditation of the transitory and impermanence of this life, the disadvantages of negative rebirths, and karmic cause and effect. All three of these objects of our meditation should be understood in their completion. We need all three together in order to comprise that method that gives rise to the mindset urgently seeking the benefit of future lives. It's kind of like constructing a house or a building. There are lots of different parts to it. There's the doors, the windows, there's the floor, there's the ceiling. And when it comes time to do the building, we gather together all of the parts, and then each part gets put in its place. And when they are put in their place and constructed together just so, they are able to construct the house. Similarly, when we're looking at the practice shared in common with the initial degree of spiritual maturity, there's lots of different parts that come together. There's different pieces that fit together. And we first gather them together. The meditation that yields understanding of the impermanence of this life, understanding of the disadvantages of negative rebirth, and the understanding of karmic cause and effect. And all of these three are what give rise to the mindset that seeks the benefit of future lives. Each of these three individual focuses of meditation we bring to completion, and then we put them all together in their places to construct the method that gives rise to this authentic, extraordinary mindset that urgently seeks the benefit of future lives. So you could say that the cause for that mindset that is directed at favorable rebirths in future lives are all three of these meditations: the meditation on the impermanence of this life, the deficiencies of negative rebirth, and karmic causality. Because the way it works is, to get a particular result, it's not necessarily a one-to-one relationship, one cause, one result. Any given result will be created by a combination of different causes. And here it is all three of these focuses of our meditation that give rise to an authentic mindset directed at the benefit of future lives.
Hola. Tiene cosas tienen de la comja. Chua medaba dan legunde dan yasungi nimi sum. Di ini rere yang subject kachambora. Tiene legunde sedi kachambora. Yang yasungi nimi sedi yasung la dan yasung sum dan yasung rere la yang. Tin nang se ewa mangbo ere disugi dungan yungsul dan tiso hachang kachambora. Di indi kosuda ini disola chusum kazi gi kachimboyona tegaso gomdi kachimboyongro. Di indi dini ta di rere la ini gom kazi gi dini sangbu chungna di sum soba la dini dini chima dunyer gi lo diyan dinashi pusum soba dang kebarchen yongro. Ina yang ngarangso tanda kapsuda disi nima ini 그래서 세션 게임도 요마레 디인자드니 모두 다 미다바 relation 개바 쉐어다운데니 레근데 relation 개바 쉐어다 연송이 님이 relation 개바 쉐어기 뜻을 요마로 단단 가능성다 overview 디조 쉐그레 될 때는 도시그래. 디마도 나도 relation 시에도 말아. overview 하고는 되니 나도 니 개바디 되니 넘버 2 나나 드니 기기리 카시 킨사이레 살바야나 드니 저섬나 카시 닝과야나 드니 킨사이레 어디인자 드니 드는 거랑서다 리레이션도 개버도 두고 말아 이나다 포인트 신고 그래
Each of these meditation topics, the impermanence of this life, karmic cause and effect, and the defects of the negative realms are incredibly vast. Each one of these are very detailed, very broad topics. Karmic cause and effect is an immense topic. If we want to examine the negative realms, the negative rebirths, this too is an incredibly vast topic. There's lots of detail to it. There's 3 general negative rebirths in 3 realms, and each of those have a lot of detail. So there's a lot of different subdivisions to each of these. And because it's so vast, because it's so detailed, to do it complete justice, it takes a lot of time to understand those, and correspondingly, the amount of time it takes to meditate on each of these is also very vast. If we have that kind of time frame, then we're really able to generate that mindset that urgently seeks the benefit of future lives in a very particular way, an extraordinary, abundant way. But in this particular set of teachings, we don't have a whole lot of time. It's 8 days of teaching, and there isn't time to go one by one to all of the details of impermanence of this life, all of the details of karmic causality, all of the details of the negative realms and their deficiencies. So principally, I'll be giving a general overview of these topics. And with that general overview, even if we can't get down to all the nitty-gritty details, that general overview will be enough to engage in listening, contemplating, and meditating. Whether we're new students or old, it will be possible to get some level of understanding through listening, contemplating, and meditating using this overview, even if we're not able to explain each in intricate detail.
Hola, tenemos chiwa mitaba ani samsuldi kazang ngazu shebanashire mebar chiwa namji chamme chigya mitongba chiwa samba sumgi kone samgugure teyan su dushena dine chiwe namba kumsul nala changyongure.
The way to contemplate impermanence is, as I explained in previous sessions, the general framework are these 3 points for contemplating impermanence, consisting of the certainty that we will die, the uncertainty as to when we will die, and that only Dharma is of assistance to us with respect to our death. This is what, in general, completes the way to contemplate and meditate on the Dharma consisting of impermanence of this life.
That theder ringdu mineba chiwa samne any chima pinchedu chiwa didini ngazu me shiwa dang chukamba nashi gyunche dwaya mayimba. Chiwa sana tsedi nawa di nup chimi nawa sharegi gozugura tela ngazu chiwa lawara mato any chukamba nashi gyunche dwaya dang me shiwa nashi gyunche dwaya yomare karasuna sim serik samdi gyunche yomara sim serik la gyun gaya yomare. Tinzadini shiwa kapsu kewa chima lenyagi dine, gyudan ken chadang sang yoro, chimi nawa sharayagi. Tinza dine shiva kapsu riba ginche chogumare, yangyur kewa chima la ningsam jargare. Tinza dine shiva sayari tsedigi nawa nup, chimi nawa sharayagi, 고추가 내갑들라 치와라 치미 나와샤 고추도 거스들 버도라 버도기 나와야 눕네 되니 겨지마 눕로디 아니 겨지마디 무슨 인삼 자라게 되니 인삼 자라고로 띵어나서 니마를 얘기 메시지 찍바래서 먼저 니마 찍라더니 텐라더니 니 쿠도디 가서 니모기 나와디 눕로다 되는 찍바래 니 쿠도 내가 눕그래 시디 가서 땐데 눕로라 탑체 좀 켜봐라 도당 찍바래 님이 나와디 눕로디 가서 되니 가서 니쿠 되더라 집에 가서 니 찍고 찍어라 니 국산에 니람당도 이 버드 나와지 찍어 테디 나와디 눕네더니 연결 나와셔야 고투 남도셔야 고투도 가서 버드 나와셔도로 니람당에 찍어 니디 서섭 쳐도 가서 니람당으로 니 두고고도 니람당 말아 테디 나와 눕네 치미 나와 마셔 내가들 니 두고고 나시러 치왕원에 들어 ini namto yo lepsona bardina ma gotu dora ti nilam dauna jira mas ni di sasop chasona nilam dangra ni tubu gaso nilam dangwa ni chiwa ni tubu ko na jere bardo na de gar ni sasop chane nilam dawa da gore nilam je se sona ni yang shoge gi na de shagira sangning ni me na de shagira 겨지마도 찍어라. 겨지마 인삼 자가 찍어라.
So what is this process of death? What is happening in this process of death? Death is the name we give to that time when the appearances of this life wane and the subsequent appearances begin to dawn. That's what death is. It's not like water evaporating or a fire being extinguished. It's not some kind of extinction that happens at death. Sometimes science might have descriptions of that kind, that death is just an extinction. But from this standpoint, what is happening here is that at the end of this life, all of the causes and conditions are present for the appearances of a subsequent existence to arise. That is the process of death. Death is that name we give to the process of the appearances of this life waning, starting to fall away, just as continuously the appearances of a subsequent existence begin to dawn. It's the setting of the occurrences, the experiences of this life that provides the opportunity for the continuum into a subsequent existence. That subsequent existence is in this perspective called the bardo, the interval state. Then as the experiences of the bardo or intermediate state start to wane and fall away, that gives rise to the opportunity for the experiences of the next life to arise. There's a continuum that's unbroken and continues in this way, And we call that death, bardo, and rebirth. Actually, every single one of our days in this life is exactly like that. We experience the various things that occur in our day. And then we, at night, when we lay down, we label sleep the occurrence of those daytime experiences falling away, setting, or waning. It's the same exact process at death. There's the same kind of continuity at death. There is a difference as to their relative strength or impact. The intensity of the process at death is greater than the lesser intensity of sleep, but in effect, they are the same process. The daytime experiences wane and set, and we label that sleep. And that gives the opportunity for the experiences of dream to occur in that same continuum. That's what we call a dream. In the process of death, the waning of the experience of this life opens the door to the experiences labeled the bardo. That's when those experiences have the opportunity to arise, just like a dream experience has the opportunity arise as the daytime experiences wane, and we call that sleep. If we don't sleep, we don't dream. Until we actually sleep, the dream experiences do not have the opportunity to dawn. Similarly, the subsequent experience after this life, called the bardo, has the opportunity to dawn. It begins when the experiences of this life wane. They start to set like the sun as we sleep. Just like in dream and sleep, if we don't sleep, no dream happens until the experiences of this life fall away, until they set and wane. The bardo experiences do not arise. But when the experiences of this life do wane, it gives the opportunity for the bardo experiences to arise, just as dream experiences arise in deep sleep. And then at the end of our sleep in the morning, just as we awake from the dream and the experiences of a new day dawn, at the end of the bardo, those experiences end and a new life set of experiences dawn.
Nawadi condition similar surgery. Similar condition legi kingi shagro, legi bakcha gari shagro. The in the Danganzon Ninsum, when a Dundola Kiegi layana. Didn't want to shit it because it said in now the Nubdogro. That Chimina Sheregi to Solera. Because the Chimina Garisha and Marangi Sim in Naladine, Keva Jama Keva legi bakcha gari and the now the shagro. Tanga Dundola Kiaina. In it to legi baksadi Nawadi Shere go to the then Bardena Shadogro. Nala Bardena did it to do league in Nawashagre. In a Kiwamone Maradi, Mundoro, Track Rodi. Then Bardena the Nupsana and Kiwajimi now only the Shagres. Tini Lechig de Gures. Tundugina, Tundugit, no one Shagro. Tell another Tundukio Lena, Tundulin some Tundukio and in some journal.
As the experiences of the bardo wane, as they set, and the experience of the next life begins to dawn, each of these are the result of karma. So experiences refers to various appearances and experiences that mind encounters. Where do these mental experiences come from? They arise based on the condition of karma, the various habitual imprints that have been laid down by karma are what govern the experiences that arise to mind. If, for example, at the time of death, there is active karma for rebirth in the negative realms of animals, as the experiences of this life wane, as they set, the time has come for the experiences of the next life to dawn. If those experiences are governed by the karmic imprints of an animal existence, then that is the set of experiences that will begin to arise. The karmic imprints for an animal existence begin to dawn in the bardo or intermediate state. These are the experiences that mind encounters in the bardo. You can say that there is an animal bardo body experience that dawns as the experiences of this life wanes. It's not exactly a future rebirth just yet. It's kind of a preview of the rebirth that's to come. And as the experiences of that animal bardo body wane and set, then the actual rebirth as an animal begins with its corresponding experiences dawning. This process is given the name, it is labeled taking rebirth as an animal.
Hola, tiene da dringa do kewachima sedila ringdu mene ba chiwadi eni mundu gyurna eni chiwe jesu me shiwa da chukamba na shin gyunche do mayimba eni kewachima la dogu gure ta kewachima la dosa de dendo ngendo nisu ngebare gyunchen garre lamna kewachima de legi dogure lela kewada migewa nisu ngebara lela sanada lela chidang Kevada Miguel Lumaden Sum Shigre, Lumaden la Tebu Yamara, Lumaden la Tebu Gag Niba Yamare, Sabin Ruban Hires. That Tebu Gag Niba Yavadi Kevada Miguel Nira. The Tebu Gag Niba Yavi Lela, Kevada Miguel Nisungiva in them, Dig Tebu Lion, Tendo the Genda Nisungivara. In the Kevachiva Pengela Rosa, Tendong and Nimato. You maybe continue in the leg is just Lela Ralever, Lela Chitang Keva the Miguel Loma than Sum Shanayang, Tebuki, Nibadi, then Keva the Miguel Nire, Nisungiver.
When we speak of the time for future rebirth coming, again, it's not like the time of death is one where water simply evaporates and nothing is left. There's this continuity that moves forward. And that continuity, the result of that continuity is governed by karma. The results are either positive or negative. Why is that? Because the results depend on karma. Generally speaking, karma has three different kinds. It can be virtuous karma, non-virtuous karma, or neutral karma. But of these three, neutral karma is simply a seed, a karmic seed. It doesn't have the capacity to generate a result. of these three general kinds of karma, only positive and negative karma have the ability to generate a result. Virtuous karma and non-virtuous karma have the strength, the capacity to yield corresponding results, positive or negative, which is why, generally speaking, the possibilities for a future rebirth are either positive rebirths or negative rebirths, depending on whether the karma that governs is virtuous, yielding a positive rebirth, or non-virtuous, yielding a negative rebirth. So generally speaking, there are only these two general possibilities, a positive or negative rebirths, because it depends on karma. And of the three general kinds of karma, the neutral karma does not have the capacity to generate a result. Only positive and negative, or virtuous and non-virtuous karma, have the ability to yield a result, which are corresponding to the karma, either positive for virtuous karma or negative for non-virtuous karma. Therefore, there are these two general kinds of rebirth.
Hola. Tiendida kiwachima penchela dogu ba dosta de dendro ngero nisu ngeba ti samlo tangzi tini na to legi wangi ngendo la yan kesi bara tini ngendo la kiena kandisi yongore di gomgo edige samlo tango edige chimbore tila samlo madana de legi nde se yaden tini tibachina dungal yongore ini gewajina dewa yongore se yaden siktamado chagmare. It doesn't move your mind. Maybe it can be create more ego and pride because you become the scholar, right? You think I am the scholar, only the scholar who knows the legunde. The legunde doesn't work, doesn't help you to effective chayala garagorlana na shini ni song de kyo ya sigira chima penchela doye dosa dendro ngero ni yore ini ngensong la kyo ya sigire legi shawara ti le migyo sana ngensong de doye sigire gasi do na dene kare yongre. This is a crucial point. Usually we skip it. We don't want to meditate on. That means that's why we are missing the crucial point. That's why our practice is not effective.
When we're considering what happens, how we proceed into future lives, and that the options are only two, generally speaking, positive rebirth or negative rebirth, it's absolutely vital that we consider that it is possible that, dominated by non-virtuous karma, we may take a negative rebirth. It is essential that we consider, well, what happens if that occurs, if a negative rebirth follows? It's really important to contemplate this. It's really important to consider it and meditate this. Otherwise, if we just have this understanding at the level of words alone, that wrongdoing yields negative rebirth, virtuous activity yields positive rebirth, it's a very superficial understanding, mere words. It doesn't move our mind. Maybe it even creates more ego or pride, because this very superficial understanding of karmic causality makes us think, oh, look at me, the great scholar who knows all about karmic cause and effect. And instead of developing the mindset that eagerly seeks the benefit of future lives, it doesn't help. Our understanding of karmic causality simply develops more pride. To be effective, we really need to take this to heart. When I die, it's possible that I will take a negative rebirth. There are two options, positive or negative rebirth. These are completely dominated, governed by karma. Where I end up, where this next life goes, is an important thing that for us to consider. It's a crucial point, but we generally skip it. We don't want to go there. We don't want to meditate on that. And we're missing the crucial point. This is why our practice is not effective. So, when we're considering the disadvantages of a negative rebirth, this is what allows us to develop an effortless, natural certainty, clear knowing, and experiential understanding of the deficiencies, the disadvantages of taking a negative rebirth with all of the suffering. What we need is to develop a very powerful certainty, a clear knowing of how unbearable the suffering of the negative rebirths are. What we're going for is to generate a very powerful, very visceral, very immediate sense of the suffering, one that actually moves our mind, an experiential understanding that is intense and powerful and immediate in character. We should continue meditating on the sufferings of the negative realms until that happens. Got it?
조금 기 둥얼디 이 ngaransolada mi ludene yebedni sarangdang 조금 기 둥얼 텔라 켜버 거래 요랬었나 먼저 미 둥얼 미 텔라 yebedni sarang 조금 기 둥얼디 슉슝슝으로 대전은 뭐서 뒤인 통통으로 대전은 뭐서 애니 델라양 설탑이라 세야게 탑셔요 맞아 장나 둘로게 요래 차나 에어컨디션 타야 요래 라소바 테네 둥알 세야게 탑셔요 맞더라 또 녀성성로 그래 요래랑 테네 둥알 사랑기 둥알 하장 톱침 보라 엔 뒤름 보라 델라 세야게 탑셔요 말 켜버리라다 먼저 둥알디 칠집에 탑이죠 말 사랑기 둥알 쑥 전부 유름 뭐 용한들라 세야게 탑셔요 말에 디에도 가서 엔 델라 섬르다나 되면 난송기 둥알 사랑기 둥알디 먼저 미 둥알레 개규 뚱규기 쳐와임 봐 쑥체라 유름와 설탑 매봐 델라 섬르다나 되니 나랑도 토도 밤나 간에 영설에 디 제스 바투그라 다데 냠뇽 빼랑나 야르가 사사의 냠뇽단 군가당의 냠뇽 디 빼라랑네 테니 냐와 차랑기 둥얼디 컴페어잖아 테니 다당 라운스 미 리딘레 예베드네 둥얼 중중 차랑기 둥얼 중중 대양 세토고야 말에 디 냠뇽디 빼라나 테니 가시 냐와 차랑기 둥얼 토도 바소나들이 그래 정선에 세토야서 말에 디 테니 냠뇽라 샤로제 테니 스미드베 들어봐 손랑 맞게 봐도 공부 그래서
The sufferings of the negative rebirths are unbearable. And what we need to do is to develop our own experiential understanding of that. We need to understand this with clarity, have clear knowing that is experiential in character, born within our hearts of just how unbearable that is. So how do we do that? For example, if we talk about the hell realms, what are the sufferings of the hell realms? This involves knowing things like how many different kinds of hell realms are there, what are the general characteristics of each of these kinds of realms, what are the particular sufferings and how do they come about. If we're going to go into detail, all of these details would be examined. But if we don't have that kind of time, which we don't in this context, we can generally understand things as follows. When we speak of the three negative realms, the suffering of the hell realms is described as intense heat or intense cold. The suffering of the hungry ghost realms are described as powerful hunger and thirst. And the sufferings of the animal realms are described as preying on one another and servitude. So these three, the hell, hungry ghost, and animal realms consist of the three negative rebirths. And they have these particular kinds of suffering that characterize each. But when you look at these, heat, cold, hunger, thirst, etc., we have a taste of these kinds of suffering. We have a sense of what these are like in our own human existence. We can use that experience as a basis and extrapolate from that. We can come to a powerful experiential understanding of how unbearable the suffering at these negative levels would be based on the experience we have in our own human bodies. For example, it's easy to connect with an understanding of the suffering of the heat and cold of the hell realms or the hunger and thirst of the hungry ghost realms. What's the difference between those realms and our own experience of these as in a human existence? It's a distinction as to the relative power, how strong the suffering is. For example, the heat and cold of the hell realms are much more powerful than the relatively weaker experiences of heat and cold that we have. We have relatively weaker hunger and thirst than the hungry ghost realms and so forth. Not only that, but relatively speaking, the amount of time that we have to endure heat or cold, hunger and thirst is much shorter in a human existence than in a hell realm or hungry ghost existence. And what's more, not only is our experience of these weaker, not only do we endure it for less time, but we actually have ways that we can ease that discomfort. If it's extremely hot out, we can use an air conditioner. If it's very cold, we can resort to warm clothing. These are not options at the negative realms. So the distinction is that in these negative rebirths, it is far more powerful, the intensity of the suffering, the amount of time that that suffering continues, and the inability to access any means to relief from that suffering. These are the differences, the intensity, the amount of time, and the lack of any means to gain relief from that. But we can use our understanding in our own human life and imagine, extrapolate from that. What would this be like if it was far more powerful, far more long lasting, and I had no way to resolve that, to gain relief? Think on that. Think on that until you're completely certain, extrapolating from your own experience how unbearable that would be. We can use the experience of a long hot summer with no relief in sight, or a similarly cold winter, etc., to have a sense of the suffering of the hell realms. Really use your capacity to generate this understanding based on the experience in our own human existence, how absolutely unbearable the suffering of heat or cold in the hell realms and so forth would be. And to consider what our experience would be like if the suffering was so much more powerful, so much more long-lasting, with no relief in sight. Consider how unbearable that would be.
Hola, tinasi dini ngazo tanda mi le dini le tekom ki dungal chung di ngazo la nyamnyong yobadi ini pesha ne dini ngazo suemi tu baimba pena ngazo nyima ni sa dini khala masa dena ngazo gi da pumbo dictator chi yana digi ngazo la da tawachi khala masa ne dela na tawachi mo nyima sum khala masa ne dela na kala khawro nyima sum phasha ne nyima chigla khala masa dena yang dini kala khawro nyima chi chasam phasha ne nyima chigi na la dini ngazo breakfast and dinner ganuji masa ne dini kala khawro surgoro dito dini ani tekum gi dungal ki nyamnyong chung di yang setu khabo yimbe ani nyamnyong di pela shane kasi ngaran so hidala ki ne hida gi dungal di thodu bamna dene kale so dare samlodana setu be me be ne nyoa samlo se chig du dana tene Sela meba. Se tube meba imbedini. Nishi nyuma tumbaji yungre esumda. Tela seji de shana gomrade. Di gomji be gechim boysa. Ine ngazo mangchawadi ine di gomji ko se chigdara yungro. Tela ngazo dine gabo yomaro. Ngazo skip chigrewa. That means we get lost the point. Then if we get lost the point, then other practice get lost the effect. Niba meba chagre.
Lare. We have plenty of experience of hunger and thirst in a human existence. We can use this example and extrapolate from that. When was the last time you just couldn't bear your hunger? Think about what it was like, what it would be like to not be able to eat for a day or 2 days. Think about an entire month without eating. Forget about it. We couldn't even do 3 days without eating, without experiencing discomfort. Forget about 3 days. Even 1 day is hard. Let's face it. We're hungry between breakfast and lunch, between lunch and dinner. This is the kind of experience we have. We can connect with our own experience of hunger and thirst in every single day. And yet, this is far lesser in intensity, in duration, and in the ability to relieve it than the experiences of the preta or hungry ghost realms. We can use our experiences of the difficulty in tolerating hunger and thirst to extrapolate how much worse it would be in a hungry ghost experience, and really use our own experience to develop an experiential understanding of what it would be like to have a hungry ghost experience of hunger and thirst of such intensity, duration, and inability to relieve it. This is something that we need to think about in a very one-pointed way, really plant that in our mind in a very single-pointed way so that we're able to develop a very immediate, visceral experience that we could not bear it. We need a sense of clarity, a clear knowing in an experiential way of just how unbearable that is. And once we develop that experiential understanding, we stay with it in meditation, one-pointedly focusing on that experience of unbearability of the suffering. This is really important. Usually it's a fearful situation. It's gruesome. So we don't like it. We skip it because it's unpleasant. And so we lose the point of this meditation. And if we lose the point of this meditation, our other practices lose their effect. They become ineffective.
Hola. Tina sidine tunde tungal yang aso chigla chig sawe tungal kolchogi tungal so dinira. Chigla chig sawe tungal ngaso penataran tana mi lidela mosquitogi so gyamna yang sekala kodo. Good night maparna tetumido. Tina kaso dine ngaso mi lidela mosquitogi so gyawe dine tungal chungjung yang se kabodo. Tela samudana ngaso tunde lidela mus kene tunde la chigla chig sawe chigi chig sawe tungal dang sebado chebe tungal nanti todu basona tene condition sare se tuve meba imbe nyamnyong nishi la nyong atba yongre
Then we can look at the characteristic sufferings of an animal realm rebirth. For example, one of the sufferings is that animals prey one on another. They hunt and kill and eat each other. How do we understand that from the perspective of our human existence? What example can we use to extrapolate? Just think of a mosquito bite. We can barely manage a mosquito bite. We have all kinds of repellents and different things to do to avoid the discomfort of a mosquito bite. And if we have that experience of how unpleasant that is, extrapolate that further, bring it to the level of an existence that's entirely built on preying one on another, one animal eating another, another hunted by another, and so forth. The suffering of killing and being killed is the suffering of the animal realm that we can connect to through this example. And when we compare with it out of our own experience of a mosquito bite, then we can have a deep going, visceral experience of clear knowing of how unbearable that would be.
kurbu chiko tsawo je kerne kilometer chik gomba pone do na pe kala kawra ti nyamnyong di pe sha ne dine tundo gi kulcho gi dungal di la samdana no do kurbu chiko tsawo kurne kilometer chik tam do de yang de kala kawo ya na ini tundo gi ludin lang la ini sing gi rawa me ba kulche jibe dungal di thod bamna kandas yong sare samlo dana dine tiang sala me ba imba yeshe ke tela sechik du tamba nyawra shana nyonga char yongre ti nyamnyong di pe mese kechimbur sala me ba imba di nyonga chi chagdo ti nyamnyong di pe kechimbur sare tela tene dine ngana do chegi pyen di dine tongtu gre you can feel the chegi inden dine di nyamnyong de la tene chegi inden tongtu gre action speaks louder than word right the nyamnyong di mena the chegi phen the dish game the six mado similar suktu one nyamnyong di yena the digi chegi phen ta to gre chegi phen sor to gre the gasu ini gejim bore yes
In addition to preying on one another, animals suffer from servitude. In our own human existence, we can just connect with the experience of having to carry a heavy load for a long distance as we walk along with a heavy pack or something like this. And we can extrapolate from that. How difficult is it to do that for even a kilometer? And imagine what it was like, what it would be like to have to suffer the involuntary servitude that animals undergo. Think on that and develop to deep-going certainty, a powerful, visceral experience of just how unbearable it would be. The sense is to evoke that experience as though it were happening for you, based on the experiences you have in your life. And then to establish recollection, mindfulness in that experience with a very strong focus so that we're actually marinating in that experience. That experience of just how unbearable that would be is an incredibly important one to cultivate, to evoke that experience and to really instill the understanding of how unbearable it is what allows us to see with immediacy the great benefits and advantages of the Dharma. When we understand that the Dharma is beneficial in its ability to allow us to avoid this kind of experience, we see that with clarity. Action is speaking louder than words. Without a visceral sense of that, without a felt sense of what it is like to not have the resources of Dharma, then our Dharma understanding remains at the level of words alone. It doesn't touch our mind. It doesn't move our hearts. It is through having our own experiential understanding that we're able to truly understand the benefits and advantages of Dharma. This is absolutely essential.
다 디와 당보디 되기 시사서 다 디와 니바들더니 렌터디 지슈기 디와 니바디 키랑길로나 당보
알았어.
오늘 여러 디와.
So that explains briefly the way to meditate on the disadvantages of the negative rebirths. And I'd like to direct my attention to the remaining questions. I've already answered the first of the 5 questions. And then the second question is, what degree of spiritual maturity is someone who acts with virtuous motivation to genuinely help others in this life, but does not believe in future lives? What is the fruition of their virtuous practice?
What is the cause of someone have so much power that they are able to kill?
Oh, Tuchina. Sorry, I have a different order than Drupon Khenpo. The second question that he's going to address is, what is the cause of someone having so much power that they're able to kill countless beings?
What is the cause of so much power, having so much power? 당아서 땡상기 되는 것도 본보다다 라서바 지속이 되는 마투 겹 미망볼라 심지망볼라 되는 쳐지고라 다 데려버 되는 파워디 규가를 되는 연구레스 규가디 디레다
나다래
다디 파워디다 개화기 되고라 이네 파워를 유스디 되는 연몽기 제거라 the misuse jigora power the migwala dine toxic mara Quran soge dine longje wangtang or knowledge that this samadi yinjingi chadi legbe chadi any kyongama sonam jebe digura ine the danda misuse jigora sonam jibe dibudi any visual lobatan gora visual lobatan ayde garan semla lo chesu do yamara sedile simbe on the dora lendela mong be marigba digi sedile simbe on the do any sedile simbe dila tene dini nagal ke thado ke tasha digi nagal ke thado ke in delatine kongroke delatine dine koranso power di visual lobatan in simjin mangbo sokje bala soba diro jigora the gyudi gyore hine in kendi migora Kendi nyomongi kenjero.
So the question again is, what is the cause of someone having so much power that they can kill countless beings? Drupon Khenpo says that the answer to that is, for example, someone can have great power and wage war with armies, as we're seeing nowadays, and kill many beings. But so what is the cause of that? The cause of the power to do that is virtue. But that virtue is not being put to good use. It's being misused because the conditions under which it's being used are governed by kleshas, negative emotions, disturbing minds, natural tranquility. It's impossible for power to arise from non-virtuous karma. Virtuous karma gives rise to power, to resources, to charisma, to knowledge. All of these are the result of virtuous karma. They are the result of merit gathered in previous lives. But that can be put to positive or negative uses. In this case, we're seeing power being misused. The application of the power is completely mistaken. Why is that? Because mind has not turned to Dharma. The power is governed by a mind that is completely obsessed with the things of this life, that is completely benighted when it comes to karmic causality. As a result, this mind is governed entirely by kleshas, such as pride, which gives rise to jealousy, which gives rise to aggression, and so forth. So while the power comes from a virtuous cause, the misuse of that power, killing many beings, is governed by non-virtuous conditions, such as these negative kleshas.
Hola. Tini lama gomoto sungido sonam digi barsere sungdo. Tes chigdi kinsodo. Sonam re yang digi barsere sina kinsoro. Ine da sonam digi barsere sedi sonam ye sonam gi degu da pena lui funzu soba longjo funzu soba. 등산기 본보도도 루이 분수 소바 요래 롱조 분수 소바 요래 콜 분수 소바 요래 이 소놈 그래우라 이거 미겨 산에 루이 분수 소바 롱조 분수 소바 콜 분수 소바 도구 말아 소놈 그래우라 이내양 루이 분수 소바 롱조 분수 소바 되게 그래지고 하려는데 나길게 차도게 되네 녀몽 계기도 녀몽 되기 시에는 내버지기도 Dini sonam di nyomong ikin to do. Diji di sonam garcha son barse cha son. Sonam digi barse de son. Di garje ne cha re. Sharab meba. Sharab meba de cha re.
You can see how in this situation that arises out of merit, it can nevertheless serve as causes, as conditions for being obstacles and wrongdoing. That's rather strange, isn't it? That merit can serve as conditions for obstruction and wrongdoing. How does that work? Well, whenever we're talking about merit that leads to a positive existence, a good, strong body, resources, a retinue of people surrounding us, and so forth, these are all results of merit. The results happen, but then what happens with those results is up in the air. Even these results, these fruits of merit, can actually serve as causes for generating kleshas. These fruits of merit have the ability to generate pride, to generate jealousy, etc. based on on that fruition of a positive existence with lots of wealth, good retinue, a good body, etc. In those circumstances, the fruition of merit is actually serving as the conditions for kleshas. It's actually becoming an obstacle. Why is that? How is it that this happens? It is due to a lack of prajna, a lack of precise knowledge that this occurs. So I hope that helps to answer those questions, and we're going to leave it there for today because our time to end has passed. Now, please gather together all of the virtuous roots that have come from this listening to the genuine Dharma and dedicate them to ourselves and all beings in a similar situation, that we and all beings may attain the level of Buddhahood. And please make the aspiration and dedication prayers that this may happen. Cheers.
Good. Have a good day.